All right, guys, so now we're going to talk about execution context, which might sound a little intimidating, especially if you're a true beginner. But just know that learning this stuff now and learning the bigger picture of what's happening when your code is running is going to benefit you more than if you learn this stuff 2, 3 years down the road like I did. So execution context just think of this as something that's going to happen behind the scenes. We're not looking at any new advanced code or anything like that. In fact, the example code we're going to use is just very simple stuff we've already done, just creating a variable, creating a function, running a function. All right. Now, as far as what this is, the execution context is a special environment that's created by the JavaScript engine in the browser, or if you're using Node.js, the engine that Node.js uses, which is the V8 engine. And this special environment, this execution context, includes the currently running code and everything that aids in its execution. And when it's first created, that's called the global execution context. Okay, you can think of it as like the global scope. And then anytime you invoke a function, that function will have its own execution context that'll last for the span of the function. Okay, when the function's done, then that function execution context is done. Now, to kind of visualize the execution context, I created this box. So you can think of it as a box with two sides where you have your variable, what's called the variable environment on one side. And this is going to be all the variables and all the functions in your code stored in key value pairs in memory. All right, so that's the memory. And then we have the execution side, which is the thread of execution. So JavaScript is what we call a single-threaded language. A thread you can think of as like a process, and your code is executed line by line on that thread or on that process. All right, so just to be clear, JavaScript is single-threaded and it's synchronous. So it's executed line by line. There are asynchronous capabilities, which we'll talk about later, different web APIs and stuff like that. But just know that at its core, JavaScript is single-threaded and it is synchronous. Now, there's two phases when the execution context is created. So the first phase, the memory creation phase, you can think of as like one swoop through before your code is actually run. Okay, so the memory creation phase does not actually execute your code. It does a couple things. So the first thing it does is it creates the global object in the whether that's in the browser or in Node.js. In the browser, the global object is called window. In fact, if I go to Chrome real quick and I go into the console and I type in window and I hit enter, it's going to show me that window object and all the methods and properties on it. And there's a ton of them, okay, different APIs and stuff. And we're going to get into a lot of this later on. Now, and that's created by the execution context in the memory phase. Now, the second thing it does is it creates the this object and binds it to the global object. That's why if I come in the console and I type in this and I hit enter, it's going to show me the same exact thing, the window object, because it binds it to that. All right, then what it does is it sets up the memory heap for storing your variables and function references. So remember this box right here, all your variables and functions are going to get put into here during the memory creation phase. And then the last thing it's going to do is it's going to set the value to all of those to undefined. Okay, so if we look here, these values here, these are all going to get set to undefined in the memory creation phase. They don't get filled with values until the code is actually executed. Okay, which is the second phase, the execution phase, where it goes through line by line, and if it hits a function invocation, then it will create a new execution context for that function. Now, to give you a better picture, we're going to step through each line of this code, and I'm going to show you exactly what's happening within the execution context. And like I said, this code is very simple. We're just creating a couple variables. We're creating a function that returns a sum of two numbers, and then we're just creating some variables that will contain the return value of this getSum function. So a couple things to keep in mind. There's two phases we're going to go through, the memory creation phase and the execution phase. And whenever we invoke a function like this, it creates kind of a side function execution context. So let's get started. So we go ahead and run the memory creation phase, or we don't run it, it just gets run. And on line 1, it's going to set the x variable in memory. It's going to allocate it and store it as undefined. Okay, remember I said variables in the memory creation phase they're put into memory, but they're stored as undefined. It's going to do the same on line 2 with the y variable, store that to undefined. Now line 3, it hits a function, and functions are allocated to memory, but they're not stored as undefined. I think I might have said that. All the code within the function gets stored to memory. Okay, it doesn't get executed, it just gets put in memory for now. And then it's going to skip to line 7, where sum1 is going to get allocated to memory, stored as undefined. Okay, remember, we're not executing anything yet, so the functions don't get executed. We're simply putting the variables into memory. Same thing with sum2, that's put into memory, stored as undefined. Now what's going to happen is it's going to go through the execution phase. So it's going to go back to line 1, and in line 1 it's going to take 100 and put that into the x variable in memory. Remember, x is already in memory as undefined from the creation phase, but now that we're executing, it's going to put 100 in for x. Okay, next line 2, it's going to place the value of 50 into the y variable. Then it's going to go to line 3, but it's going to skip this function because there's nothing to execute. This is just a function definition. Then we go to line 7. It's going to now invoke getSum, because remember, we're in the execution phase, so this is a function. It's going to get run, and it's going to create a new function execution context. All right, now remember, when a new execution context is created, it has 2 phases once again. So now we're going to be in the memory creation phase for the getSum function execution context. So you can think of it as like a nested execution context. So on line 3, what it's going to do in the memory creation phase is it's going to assign n1 and n2 to memory and store it as undefined. Okay, remember, we're in the creation phase for the function execution context. So it's going to take these two and store them in memory as undefined. Then it's going to go to line 4. It's going to store sum as undefined. It's going to go to the execution phase now of the function. So n1 and n2 are going to get assigned 150. And the reason for that is because we're passing in here x and y, which are set to 150. Okay, and then on line 4, the calculation is done, and 150 is put into this sum variable in memory. Then line 5 is going to return and tells the function execution context to return to the global execution context with the sum or the value of 150. Okay, and that's going to get stored in here. The return sum value is put into the sum1 variable. Then it goes on to line 8. It's going to do the whole thing over again. It's going to open up another execution context for the function and do the same thing, just with different parameters, this time 10 and 5. All right, so just to quickly recap, because I really want you guys to get this, we run this block of code. It starts the global execution context. In the memory creation phase, it goes through each line, and it's going to set all the variables to undefined in memory. And it's going to set the function code into memory. Okay, once it does that, it starts the execution phase where 100 is put into x, 50 into y. It's going to skip the function declaration because we're in the execution context. There's nothing to execute. Once we hit 7, it sees there's a function. That opens up another execution context for the function. Okay, and then it goes through the memory phase for the function, then the execution phase for the function, and then moves to line 8, and it'll have to do the same thing because we hit another function. All right, so this doesn't really affect how you write your code right now, but it will benefit you in the future just knowing how this works behind the scenes. Now in the next video, I'm going to run this block of code, and I'm going to use the browser debugger to kind of put breaks in so we can see exactly what's happening, or as much as we can see within the browser.